Bonjour, kia ora. It's the Chew the Fat team and hors d'oeuvres, our daily hors d'oeuvres that we're giving you through Paris 24, the track and field program that has had a very exciting conclusion in every respect, but particularly from a Kiwi angle. And that's why the Kiwi scarf is back on today. I'm Mark Rosanowski. I'd love to get to an Olympics one day. This man's been 40 years ago, finalist in the 1500 metres, Tony Rogers. Tony, a young man that you know very well, has risen to the top of the Olympic podium this morning for New Zealand, Hamish Kerr, in the most dramatic of circumstances in the high jump.
Yeah, certainly was dramatic, and yeah, congratulations to Hamish. What a fine achievement in the hotbed of competition. And we all were hoping he could do it, but he gave us a little scare on the way once again by having a couple of misses at 2:31. But then the arch rival that he's been competing against, the silver medalist from the World Indoor Champs, which he was at earlier in this year, was Shelby McEwen, and you threw him out yesterday, Mark, which is well done on that, because I almost had forgotten that. He had a couple of misses at 2:34, so they were on an even playing field. They both cleared 2:36 national record for outdoors. He's done 2:36 indoors, which is fantastic. And then the heat was really on at 2:38, and looking for both of them looking for personal best at that height.
And I thought Tony's second attempt at 2:38 was very good. And having watched him in a couple of Diamond League meetings, even though he jumped obviously considerably less, well, not considerably less, but less than 2:38, he looked like he had a 2:38 jump in him. It did prove, though, to be too high on this occasion. Now, I was with the commentators, Tony, and thinking that because he had a first clearance at 2:36 and McEwen didn't, that the gold would be Hamish's right then and there. But that's not the case. And you know that's not the case. I think you've even got an app that has the actual conditions for athletics events, and consequently into a jump off we went.
Yeah, our very own Wellington official, Eddie Soria, who's one of our top New Zealand track and field officials, works at Weta or Studios, actually, in sort of the IT department and graphics. He developed a rule book, a World Athletics rule book, which is a pretty comprehensive rule book, and has got it on an app, so you can jump into those rules pretty quickly by touching, welcome, go to jumping events, go to high jump, and you can find out what happens in jump offs. And yeah, it's rule 26.9 when there's a jump off. Well, no one clears the next height, and they've both cleared the previous height. You then count up how many failures they've had. They both had 2 failures across the course of the competition. It doesn't matter what height they had them at. Then the jump off begins. Or they could do what Tamberi and Bashim chose to do in Tokyo, which was share the medal. But as someone said on the commentary, there's 50K up for grabs. They probably didn't want to share that. But as we heard with Hamish afterwards, he'd imagined something like that might happen, and they were keen to go ahead and have the jump off, which is fantastic. The hardest thing about the jump off is that, they both cleared personal best at 2:36. Then they had a further 3 jumps at 2:38. I think in total they had 14 jumps, each of them, in the competition. And usually for high jumpers, I know they like to hit their top height around about the 8th to maximum 10th jump, because that's when they've still got enough left in their legs to clear the best height. So they were really pushing the boundaries out, trying to get another attempt. They get one attempt at the height they all missed, 2:38. Then it was back to the next height they missed, cleared. Neither of them got the 2:36, but then Hamish cleared the 2:34, I think it was, if I've got my numbers right now. But yeah, fantastic excitement, and a lot of people are learning a lot about countbacks in our sport of track and field, that's for sure.
Yeah, well, that's for real. Just fabulous. What was it, nearly 2 years ago now? Episode 14 of Chew the Fat was Hamish Kerr. If anyone wants to go back and listen to that, still available on Spotify. At that stage, Tony, he was a Commonwealth champion, Olympic champion, obviously, just elevates him to new realms. And when we think back on our magnificent track and field history, and particularly, obviously, the running in the middle distance with Lovelock and Snell and Walker, Hellberg, then, of course, Yvette Williams in the long jump, Dame Valerie in the shot put. I think I've just named all of our Olympic gold winners, track and field. For him to be a part of this now in an event like the high jump is, I just hope that casual New Zealanders don't underestimate this achievement.
Yeah, I hope they don't. And let's hope all those people that sell high jump pads are going to get a few extra orders for them in the coming summer. And I know they've already had some requests from some schools, actually. But yeah, well, he's definitely the up there with the elite of the elite in New Zealand track and field, with being a gold medalist at the Olympics. Obviously, the last male, if I've got it right, and you've just run through them, was John Walker back in Montreal to win the 1500 gold. We've had Tom take plenty of medals in those elite events across the worlds and Olympics. He's won medals, but other than Valerie, in recent years, we haven't had a gold for some time, have we?
No, no, indeed. And I remember as a kid that I wanted to be John Walker, and that's what I wanted to be after that 76 gold. And I'm sure there'll be kids that were my age back then that now that they'll want to jump high, like
Yeah.
Hamish. Hopefully, they've got the right physique for that.
Yeah, well, there'll be a few bedroom high jumps going on, I'm sure, with kids landing on their bed and trying to do the old flop. But yeah, no, it's an exciting event, that's for sure. And let's hope that the Kiwis can embrace that fantastic victory you had.
Before we leave it, Tony, in your dealings with Hamish, and you've brought him to Wellington a number of times there in the Capital Classic and dealt with him many times, how would you describe him? And did you feel that he did have the temperament to cope with what unfolded this morning?
Yeah, he's a really chilled guy, and that's part of his temperament, and you can see that. And he's very welcoming, if you like. In fact, the last dealings we had with him, Mark, was back at the New Zealand secondary schools in December. For me personally, we got him along to speak at the 50th secondary schools track and field dinner, which was the anniversary back in Christchurch, and we all got some really good insights into how he felt about Budapest, and we could see that this was his real big target this year, and I think Glasgow was an extra bonus on the way this year. So yeah, he learned a lot from Budapest and the World Champs last year, and was really looking forward to this target in Paris.
So Hamish Kerr, Olympic gold in the high jump. Now, in terms of track and field this morning, there was one other field event, the women's javelin. And Tony, Kitaguchi from Japan came out on top here, the world champion. You were tipping out Van Dyke for a bit of place value, and that unfolded nicely. I didn't see a great deal of the javelin. How close was it?
Yeah, it was actually pretty close competition. Kataguchi, she got out there reasonably early in the piece and did a season's best of 65 and a bit. And then I think there was another 5 female javelin throwers there, all within the next metre around the 63 metre mark. And Van Dyke got that out on her third throw, and she secured the silver then and managed to hold on to it from a lot of the European girls that were coming at her over the last 2 rounds.
The action on the track was just truly fascinating this morning, and the 800 meters came to its conclusion, and a 20-year-old Kenyan came out on top, Wanyoni, in a desperate finish with the world champ Arab from Canada so close. Really composed run by a 20-year-old there to get the job done in 141 and change there, Tony.
Oh, absolutely fascinating race, wasn't it? The pace went on straight from the beginning. Young Wanyoni from Kenya, and to run that from the front, you'd think that the only times that we've actually had fantastic championship races, of course, in the 800 over the years, with the calibers go back to my day of Joachim Cruz and Seb Coe and Steve Yvette and Seb Coe back in Moscow. So we're going back a long time, but there's always been some fantastic 800 meter races because there's no room for error. There's no pacemakers, and I guess the hot favourite was Sajadi, the Algerian, who probably in the finish, because of the hot pace, just got himself a little bit too relaxed and too far back, and just wasn't able to make up the ground. And we, coming through and looking still strong was a rock. But yeah, Wanyoni hang on really well. A rope from Canada looks a great athlete as well. So was a fascinating race. And the local French guy, I think he finished up 6th and ran 142.14. Now, that would be something of dreams to run in the Olympic final, finishing 6th and run 142.14. But it was I think it was the fastest 800 meter Olympic race of all time.
Yeah, extraordinary stuff, and maybe Radisha's world record under threat in the next few years. Let's stay with the men, 5,000 metres, and Jakob Ingebrigtsen certainly looks pretty comfortable when it comes to the 5K, although he hasn't been able to nail the 1,500 titles that he wants, Tony, and didn't even finish on the podium in the 1,500 metres on this occasion. The 5,000 meters is very different, and he was commanding in his victory, really.
Yeah, well, it was called his redemption race, wasn't it? And I was surprised that all the Africans actually didn't go out as hard as they could have. They didn't go out particularly fast. I think the first K was only about 14:30 pace. It certainly started to pick up after that. That was for sure. But that was just going to play right into Ingebrigtsen's hands, wasn't he, with his 3:28, 1,500 meter speed. And yeah, that's how it worked. There was still plenty of them in with chances with a K to go, but Ingebrigtsen had way too much speed and composure, and I think he ran about 2:26 for the last K, which is pretty amazing stuff, and was great. But yeah, we tipped out Grant Fisher once again yesterday at $3, and he came in for that bronze medal. So it was a great race once again because of tons of guys in with chances with a K or so to go.
Yeah, Fisher had a terrific Olympic Games with medals in the 10,000 and the 5,000. In the women, Faith Kipyegon, almost the reverse of Ingebrigtsen in some respects, second in the 5,000 metres, but in the 1,500, effectively in a league of her own, Tony, for her third 1,500 metre title, which is something to behold given the strength of that discipline.
Yeah, she's definitely she's a real legend of an athlete now going forward, having won 3 consecutive Olympic titles. The only other person that's done that over this Olympics was, of course, the heptathlete F.A.T. But she was obviously ranked number 1. We know she can run under 350, and she was fortunate, I guess, that Gaddafi Sige decided to inject some good pace into the race early on, and that set the race up nicely for them to run fast, and some national records and a lot of PBs. But good to see Jessica Hull from Australia across the ditch there come through and get the medal that she probably deserves after the season that she's had, and a fine run by Georgia Bell to take bronze for the British in a national British record. So that was a fantastic run for her. And I had my eyes on Laura Muir, who was screaming home from the back of the field from early on.
Now we've come to expect some close finishes in the sprints at this Paris 24 track and field program, and in the 100-meter hurdles for women, that's what we got. But Masai Russell in by 1/100th of a second, I think it was, for another winning medal for the US, just over the French woman. And she was Simbella Mayala, who has finally got a medal for the French. They've been close in many disciplines, Tony, without actually clinching any silverware till now, and that's what she got, silver, but she was so close to gold. And honestly, there's no roof on that stadium, but if there was, it would have come off.
Yeah, 1/100th of a second was the difference between the two, and the French certainly made some noise, but some fantastic finishes in some of these races. And I mean, I had Vissa as my chance to come in for a medal, but she was leading, I think, over the 7th or 8th hurdle, but and only was 5/100ths of a second back in 4th place. And the most the one that most expected to win, I'm sure, was Camacho Quinn, and she only got the bronze. So yeah, a great run there by the American girl to take that. Masai Russell. So she seems to be a winner. She's won the trials in America, which is always the toughest thing to do probably for many Americans, to win their trial and get to the Olympics. So she's deserved of her gold medal in the final there today.
And we had the 2 4x400 meter relays, and again it was the United States to the 4 in both. In the women's race, they were utterly dominant and a mile in front throughout, Tony, but a really good battle for the medals in behind. And I must admit, I was cheering for the Irish team. I was hoping they could get on the podium, not quite finishing a close 4th.
Yeah, it was. Well, they're extremely exciting, weren't they? But there was no race of it in the women's, with the Americans just cleaning out and just missing by a 10th of a second, a long-standing record set by the Soviet Union back in 1988. That was a fantastic run, because to run that fast when they really were in no danger of losing that first medal, not like unless they had a problem with the changeover, which was always clean because they're so far in front for them. But yeah, they had a pretty star-studded lineup, didn't they? And Gabby Thomas, she comes through and takes 3 gold medals over the championships, with 2 in the relay and her 200-meter gold. So a good effort by them. But it was a close and exciting race for the minors there. So fantastic work for the British to get a medal as well.
Yeah, certainly. And in the men's, really good finish between the US and Botswana, who had been really eye-catching in the heats. Fascinating last leg there, Tony, with Rai Benjamin taking the lead, the 400-metre hurdles winner, and up against Tobogo from Botswana, the 200-metre champion. And Tobogo gave it his best shot, but he could not get past Benjamin.
Yeah, the strength of a 400-metre hurdler, which is almost equivalent to an 800-metre runner, really. He managed to prevail in the finish, even though Tobogo sat closely on his shoulder around the bend, hoping that he'd come through and come past him in the home straight. But yeah, Benjamin, superb athlete in himself, of course, managed to hold on for the Americans, who had built up a good lead during the course of the race to take them out there. Yeah. And it was a fantastic group of times in behind the Americans and Botswana as well. With I think it was 5 or 6 teams going under 4 minutes, and even a national record. So yeah, some great performances in that. And once again, excitement plus comes with the relays right at the end when we don't really want the track and field program to end.
No, it's exactly right. It's like, oh no, come on, give us some more. We've still got the women's marathon, of course, more on that in a moment. But the men's marathon last night, and I watched a lot of it, a lot more of a marathon than I probably normally would. Tony thought it was fascinating, the course, and it seemed quite tough with those inclines. Timirat Tola, though, from Ethiopia, made a bold move and a winning move, as it turned out. And remarkably, Tony, given the fact that the course seemed to be so tough, came home in 2:06 and change for an Olympic record.
Yeah, Olympic record. They did put it up as that. I don't know whether we call it Olympic record, Olympic best, but definitely Olympic record. And yeah, I said hills and humidity. That gives the merit to the performance that they did, 2:06, and with the championship medals at stake. It was a bold move. There was so many of them still in that big bunch. We'd had that early leader, Finel, I think his name was, from Italy. He got away a little bit, but the bunch was just chasing. And even at the halfway, there was still about 15 in a pack there. And then around 25K, a great move by Tola, who was possibly, in some people's mind, the third-rated Ethiopian, stole a bit of a march and got away by about 15 or 20 seconds and just ran his own race from there and was able to hold on and take a great victory. So go down as another one of the great Ethiopian marathon runners.
Yeah, I get the only disappointment of the race, Tony, I guess, was the fact that Kipchoge wasn't able to finish on a high note there that he probably richly deserved, to be frank, and he looked in trouble a long way from home.
Yeah, he seemed to be holding on to a hip or, having some problem there, whether it was a horrible stitch or back pain or something. But yeah, shame for him. The world's fastest marathoner, of course, with being the only guy that's gone under 2 hours, but on a paced event. But yeah, a bit of a shame for him. And but yeah, the other Kenyan that was one of the favourites, he edged his way through Kiproto to come through for the bronze in the finish after sort of sitting back early on. And I guess everyone was a bit cautious. That's why it was such a big big bunch on the pace early on, was knowing how hard the course was going to be and with the heat as well.
Women's marathon this evening, to wrap up the program, starts at 6:00, and we do have a Kiwi involved, and that is Camille French. She is coming back to running after becoming a mother, and we knew her as Camille Buscombe. She's 250 to 1, Tony, but your past experiences with Camille, what can we expect tonight? What do you think we should be hoping for?
Yeah, well, Camille obviously sort of had an association with her for some time because she went to the same college in America as son Simon. But and she's been transitioning out to the marathon in recent years. I've heard that she's had some really pleasing training sessions in the final weeks in the build up. So we just keep fingers crossed for her. How she can keep pace with the African girls will be interesting. But if the race is not run too strong early on, Camille does come from a track background, of course. 1500 and 3K have been her specialties, in 5K before. So we can only hope that she gets a good run and gets through the course and runs something that's of great credit to her in New Zealand. But yeah, finding it really hard to go past any of the Ethiopians. And Asefa, who I think was second in the London Marathon, is ranked number 1. But we've got a lady by the name of Hassan there starting again. We expect, well, she's down on the list to start, and she's actually ranked second in the world for the marathon. I think she's run a best of around 2:13 or something. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see how she comes up. I guess she might just go for her, well, we'll call it a Sunday run for the first 30 or so K, and then get crack into see how she can go and see if she can get a medal.
Well, Tony, she's currently the $3 favourite. It's a really competitive market. We've got Oberi at $3.50, the Kenyan $5 around Decipher. You mentioned Ethiopia. Jepchirchir is at $6.50, $7.50 around Shankuli, another Ethiopian, and then we're out to $11 thereafter for another of the Ethiopians. So it's a very competitive market, and we see, as we saw in the men's marathon, there's certainly room for our runners to make the podium that are actually at reasonably long odds. It's not quite so easy, I don't think, to be as convincing about placing a bet in the marathon as it might be, say, on the 100 metres or the 200 metres.
No, you just want to take a bit of a punt on a few, I think, to make it interesting if you're watching, that's for sure. And yeah, surprising that Hassan, I saw that she's the favourite by that sort of odds after the workload. And maybe it's a bit of if we'd say in racing terms, Mark, it might be a bit of the Warren Kennedy or Opie Bossom factor that, that's the name that everyone knows, and they're prepared to put some money on it because they've seen a lot of them compared to some of the other women in the event. But yeah, I think there's most of the women marathoners, they've got their best performances this year from a marathon back in Tokyo in March or the London Marathon. So they've had a lot of time to recover from those March and April marathons to perform well in Paris. So we'll see how they go.
Tony, as much as I could do with some sleep, I'm really going to miss this track and field. It's been exhilarating over the past week and a bit. And I know we're going to do our next podcast, and we'll review the New Zealand team and sort of work through. But it has ended on an extreme high, obviously, with Maddie silver yesterday and Hamish's gold today. So it was certainly, up here anyway at the end of it all.
Yeah, we certainly want to be up there, and as athletic supporters and passionate people in the sport here, you and I are going to love that because we'll have some expectation that people will be keen to follow the sport during the summer. It's always fantastic when we get Olympic medals in whatever the sport, but obviously we're particularly pleased we've got some in track and field, and to two young people as well that have definitely got a future to turn up again in LA. And that's what I was thinking about that with Shelby McEwen and Hamish Kerr. They're both, I think, 27, 28. They've got another 4 years in them because Tamberi and Bashim are into their early 30s. So it'll be a good clash, I think, in Los Angeles for the American and Kiwi.
Yeah, indeed. Well, it's been thoroughly enjoyable reviewing and previewing with you. So make sure you check out the Chew the Fat podcast because we will be doing an Olympic review special very soon. But that's us for now, ending on the highest of highs on our hors d'oeuvres with a gold medal to high jumper Hamish Kerr.